So let's talk about parenthetical documentation, embedding quotes, and paraphrasing. When I'm doing my research, I might take notes, for example, like this, where I have a quote I found that I think I could use within my research. And what I do when I'm taking notes is I go ahead and put that in quotation marks so I know it's a quote from my research, and then I put my parenthetical documentation directly after it. The reason I do that is so that I don't forget where I found it. So for this example, I have this quote: "This consumer group is about to initiate litigation against McDonald's so that it will no longer be able to promote unhealthy meals with toys." And then my parenthetical documentation that came after it has parentheses, quotation mark, "let McDonald's," close parentheses, PARA1, close parentheses, period. So a couple things I want to note about this. The period is after the parentheses, not before, and not after toys. If this is the end of the sentence, the period would be after the parentheses. I also have "let McDonald's" in quotation marks. Quotation marks tells me that there was no author available for this article, so instead I had to use the title. And all you need for the title and the parenthetical documentation is just a couple words of it, enough for the reader to know which title on your works cited page you're referencing. And then I have PARA, which means paragraph. So that means there were no page numbers available in this source, but that it was labeled by paragraph number. So I went ahead and put PARA1 to indicate it's a paragraph number and not a page number. If there was no paragraph or page numbers available, then I would simply put the title or the author and then close my parentheses. But in this case, there was paragraphs labeled, so I'm going to go ahead and put para1. This is another source, a different one, and I know that because my parenthetical documentation is different. So this source, I took the quote, "McDonald's toys represent frivolity and waste." And so then I put the author's last name because it was available, and a number. This means that's the page number because there's no PARA saying that it's a paragraph, so we assume that's the page number. So those would be the original quotes, word for word, from these two sources. Parenthetical documentation has a few rules surrounding it, and it is different for every source. The majority of the sources for a research paper are going to either be websites, databases, or books. And so for those, you would have the author's last name preferably, and then if there is no author, the title, and then you would have the page number preferably, and if there's no page number, if the paragraphs are numbered, you would put the paragraph number, and if there's neither page numbers nor paragraph numbers, you would put no numbers at all in the parentheses. So here it is in order of preference. So preferred is last name, page number, no comma in between. So an example of that is Jones 2. If there's no page number, last name, paragraph number, so Jones para 2. If there's no author, you'd put the title of the article in quotation marks and then the page number. So for example, "let McDonald's" and 2. If there's no author and no page number, you'd put the title of the article and then the paragraph number. So "let McDonald's" and then para 2. And then if there's no page or paragraph number, you'd put just the author's last name. And if there's no page or paragraph number and no author, you'd put just the title in quotation marks. So you can see, like I said, this is an order of preference. If there's an author, the author's last name is always the best choice. If there's a page number, the page number is always the best choice. But if there's not, these other options do work. Now, after I've gotten my quotes and I know what I need to put for my parenthetical documentation, I need to embed those quotes. Embedding means that you are inserting the quote into a sentence of your own creation. This is important for several reasons. Number one, you want the majority of your writing to be yours, not quoted from somebody else. Number two, you want the fluency of the paper to be unhindered. And so that means you don't want to put anything in that sentence that's going to make the author or the reader stop and be jarred out of sync with what's happening. So you can see here, my words are in pink, the quote is in blue, and then the parenthetical documentation is in black. One would never have thought 20 years ago that a consumer group would be about to initiate litigation so that McDonald's would no longer be able to promote unhealthy meals with toys. Okay, so a couple things to note. All of this is my writing, so I know it's embedded because some of it's my writing and some of it's theirs. Would be is in brackets. That's because the original quote said is, but my sentence is in a different tense. So if I want to change is, I need to put brackets around it to show that I've changed the tense of that verb so that it makes sense grammatically. Then I've got these three dots, these ellipses here. That's because in the original quote, it said against McDonald's, but I don't need that information because it doesn't make sense in the sentence right there. So if I delete something in the middle of what I'm quoting, I put three ellipses showing it's been deleted. Then once again, I changed the tense here, or I added the word McDonald's, and then I put my parenthetical documentation directly after the quoted information. That's true no matter where in the sentence the quote is. You can see on this second example that my words are here and my words are here, but the quote is in the middle of the sentence. Therefore, the parenthetical documentation is also in the middle of the sentence directly after that quote. There is no period before the parenthetical documentation. The period's only at the end of the sentence. So if the paragraph ends with your words, then the period's after your words. If the paragraph ends with the parenthetical documentation because the quote was at the end, it goes after the parentheses. Now, if I'm paraphrasing this information, paraphrasing means that I'm changing as many words as possible from the original quote, but I'm keeping the original meaning. When you paraphrase, the majority of the words should be yours, and it should be about the same length as the original quote because you're not taking out anything. You're not summarizing and just putting main ideas. You're paraphrasing, which means you're keeping all of the ideas but putting them in your own words. So for my paraphrase, I said, recently one particular consumer group decided to begin the process of suing McDonald's for providing toys in their Happy Meals because it is encouraging younger children to eat food they feel is detrimental to their development. Because this is still not my information, it's my words, but not my idea, I still have to put parenthetical documentation directly after what it is that I've paraphrased. You can see that I put the original words from the quote in red, and I did that so you could see that only 4 of my words of this paraphrase came from the original quote. Everything else were my creation. If you have more than 3 or 4 words, especially grouped together one after the other, you are not paraphrasing. You're still quoting. So you need to double check when you're paraphrasing that it really and truly is your words. And then finally, I have a works cited here at the end. This one's from a database. For a database citation, you have the author's name, the title of the article, the title of the journal it was published in, the volume, a period, and then the issue. Then you put the date in parentheses, colon, page number the article was found on, so 2 to 5, the database name, Academic Search Complete, which is under EBSCOhost, the medium, so web, because this database was online, and then the date of access. If this database had no volume and issue, then there would be no parentheses around the date because there'd be no reason to separate the date from anything else because there's no other numbers next to it. This citation is also from a database. In this case, there was no author, so we had to start with the title. The publication was USA Today. There was no date listed, so I put N period D period for no date. Then there were no page numbers listed, so I put N period PAG period for no page. Then I put Academic Search Complete because that's the database name. I put the medium, which is web, and then I put the date of access. The reason I'm pointing all this out is number one, to remind you of what a works cited page looks like, and number two, to show you how this parenthetical documentation works. This one says let McDonald's. So if I'm reading this in the essay and I see let McDonald's in parentheses, I should be able to go to the works cited page and find a citation that starts with those exact same words, let McDonald's. So if I wanted to look this particular information up, I now know this is the title, this is where it was published, this is the year it was published, and I could find that exact source in paragraph 1 of that article. Same goes for this citation. Here I had Jones and 2. So if I'm reading this and I want to see the exact original source it came from, I go to my works cited and find Jones. So this particular quote came from an article written by Carrie Jones that was published in this particular journal, and it was this volume and this issue and this year, and I could go and physically find that article to read it. And I know that that quote will be on page 2 because in my parenthetical documentation I had a 2. So hopefully you can see now how the parenthetical documentation and the works cited go together, and they help the reader see where that original information came from. And hopefully you also can see the difference between citing something and embedding it as a quote, or citing something and paraphrasing it.